Okay, well, so good evening, everybody. My name is Melissa Stallfield. I am the Chair of the Historical Commission in Concord, and this is our official meeting for July 8th, 7:01 p.m. Welcome, everyone, and welcome our guests, Marcia Rasmussen, and I'm not sure who Tanner is, but welcome you.
Yeah, that's Nick. It's Nick Boynton. Sorry.
Oh, hi, Nick. Hello. So I just, I believe that we do need to take a roll call. Is that correct, Heather, of our membership to determine that we do indeed have a quorum? So Melissa Stallfield, I'm here. Bob?
Robert Close, 401 Main Street.
Nancy?
Nancy Nelson, here.
Mike?
Yes, I'm here. Michael?
PC?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mike.
So we'll move right into our first item on the agenda, which is about the Wheeler Harrington House. Nick Boynton, there's a request to remove some outbuildings. So I would ask you to present your case so that I believe everyone has received the documents for the meeting tonight and read them.
Okay. Thanks. And Heather, were you able to circulate those photos I sent this morning?
Yes, I forwarded your email.
Okay, great. Thanks for everybody for taking the time to look at it.
However, I could not open them without joining something that I know nothing about, so I did not.
Oh,
I
okay.
can work on bringing them up on the screen right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that'd be great. So I guess first and foremost, our time here at Wheeler Harrington House has been shortened to a much shorter stay than we'd hoped for and had planned on, or not planned on, but expected and wanted. And we spent hours and hours and lots of time in working on the land. Didn't obviously do much with the house because that's kind of the historic piece, but there are two sheds. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's some pictures that others. The shed in question is the shed that we call outbuilding number 1. That was, kind of in disrepair, not disrepair, but it definitely needed a lot of work. It was just filled with, oil and, it was like it's just a typical old garden shed that hadn't been used for years and years and years and years. So my sons and I had cleaned that out, and we added a couple windows. We added a really big window that we made together. And it's been used as kind of a studio office. We insulated it, we put some wiring into it. And we just really kind of fell in love with the shed. And since we have to leave the property now, we're hoping or requesting permission from the town to take that shed with us. And with the thought being that you guys weren't, there wasn't a historic portion of the property that the historic commission or the NRC really cared that much about. It's not really handicap. It's not really that usable, I don't think, to you guys. And I guess in exchange, we'd offered to, bring a replacement shed in that's about the same size. Anyway, that was our hope on that shed, that you guys would be okay with us taking it with us. And that's it. We really loved the shed and put a lot of time. It was a really special project for me and my two of my sons. And so anyway, that's my plea.
So, well, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Did you get approval the real approval for doing much on the property is really under the NRC. Also, this is a building project, so I see there's electrical. Did you get approvals from the town? And
Yeah, I think in 2019, we had met and had made a request to be able to repair or replace or rebuild 2 of the sheds and a grape arbor. I think you were there, Melissa, for that at that point in time. But so we had approval to do the repairs on that. One of the other shed we took down completely. That was a kind of more of a that was made out of particle board. It was a real disaster, the other shed. But this one, we just improved the inside of it.
Again, I'm just asking, we did approve that you could remove the toxic materials and repair the shed, But
Yeah, your comment on that was you guys, I think, I forget exactly what the quote was, but to repair or rebuild the sheds.
we could repair the shed. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's,
and I had a meeting with Marcia and I don't forget exactly who was there, Marcia, but Kate and Ryan, and they all given us the permission to do those repairs.
um,
I would beg to differ, but I don't have a recording of that meeting and I don't have notes from that meeting. All I recall is repairs, not rebuilding.
Also, if I had been there, I loved that building. It had a lot. It evoked a certain time and place. It fit with the garden. It was surrounded by perennials and flowering shrubs, and now that's all gone.
No, it's all still there. It's actually completely still beautiful, all those shrubs and stuff.
Well, they don't appear to be there. So I certainly would have objected if I had any idea that that garden shed would have been
Um,
what you were talking about. I thought you were talking about the particle board shed that was falling apart that needed repair and you wanted to use it.
yeah, even though, you know, my understanding, if you do electrical work, I thought you had to get a permit from the town to do some of this work, just basic permitting. And that is one question. The other question, I presume that you used your own materials on this. This is
Yes.
dime.
Yeah. So
But-
we did not get an electrical permit to put the outlets in there. I talked to Ryan about running some power lines from the house, but he said that would need to be a big trench, and so we never took on that piece of it, of the work.
Did
And so
the,
it's just connected through an extension cord.
did the NRC know the extent to which that building would be impacted? Because they're supposed to approve things and then we would expect that they would have contacted us.
I guess all the work we did on the sheds was based on that maintenance and that memo that, or the kind of the memo that we'd all reviewed back in, I forget when it was, and I can look it up, in
May-
2019.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, we have that in front of us.
So can I shift, the question before us is you're asking whether you can take the shed with you. And I guess the question I have for you is, as I understand it, under arrangements for rental, any improvements made by a tenant stay with the landlord. So if I'm correct, why would you expect to be able to take the improvements you've made?
No, I'm certainly not expecting you guys to say that we can take it. It's a request, and
Okay,
I'm hoping that you guys, if you guys aren't going to be using it, I know there's no plans for the property right now, and if it's something that you guys are going to be taking down, it's something that we value. That's why I'm asking, not
okay.
an expectation.
Well, you may be aware that the town requested funds from the Community Preservation Committee to conduct basically a charrette, to a public input process to determine what to do with the property. I think the shed is part of the property,
Yeah.
and that will be a point which they determine the best use of that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I wasn't expecting to be able to take it. I just, and the original, I guess from our standpoint, we had hoped to be here for years and years, and that was something that we would leave behind. But having kind of a shortened tenancy here, I was just requesting to see if that would be okay with you guys. That's
Sure.
Well, yeah. Marcia, Marcia, I think you would like to say something.
Well, I just, there is because it's municipal land and this is municipal property, the only thing that this commission could actually do is say that it is surplus and is possible to relocate it or remove it from the property. You cannot grant it to this particular individual. We have an official process that we have to go through whenever we are declaring things surplus. And then it has to be offered to a larger group. It can't just be granted to an individual. So especially when it is of a semi-significant value. So I just want to caution what is being discussed here, to say that it is not, the Historical Commission can't be granting approval to remove the shed and give it to Nick. But he would have to go, if you would have to declare it surplus, that it was no longer necessary as a component of the property, and that then the town would then be responsible for taking the next steps. Thank you.
Nancy?
Isn't it way premature to be declaring this surplus before the charrette and before we've had a chance to actually think about what it might be?
Oh, well, absolutely, but I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
the process.
I got it.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry.
So it seems to me, the issue is pretty settled, that, the shed's gonna stay there. Is
Okay.
that correct?
For now.
I'm looking to you, Marcia, but from everything you just said,
Well, I was concerned about the direction, the conversation. I just wanted to
Oh.
make sure that you can discuss however you wish you've heard from the proponent here that that there was significant input in the shed, that it has been changed dramatically from what it once was. How it relates to the land is your purview. You should talk about that. You should talk about the value of that shed to the property. And if you hope that to retain it until such time, if you were to decide that it was no longer necessary, then you would sort of release the town to take the next steps to.
But that isn't really our responsibility, is it, to declare it unnecessary?
Well, I think you would want to pursue that conversation, and if it were part of the next step as we go through the planning process for how the property could be used in the future.
Yeah.
There may come a point in time when
Yeah.
this commission might say it is not relevant to the historic nature of the house,
okay.
and then it could be removed. That's,
Mhm, mhm.
but I don't think you're at that point yet.
Okay, so I think, thank you, Nick,
Yeah.
for work you did do, but I think you understand the position is the shed stays.
Okay.
Any other discussion? But I think it's pretty simple. I think Marcia's made it clear, and I think it's clear.
Well, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. So I'd like to move on to the next item, which is the demolition review bylaw. As you know, we were successful at town meeting June 13th. It passed. And one of the things that I have actually talked to Heather, and I suspect some of you have been thinking about, how will this affect our going forward? And one, if there's a way maybe to streamline some of the process, because we know that because of the change in the timeline, we may well have more applications, but it may be very, very clear that there's no reason to actually even bring it to the commission. Case in point, Heather and I visited a property on Conant Street. Conant Street, as I think you know, was also one of our hearings earlier this year. There's a dramatic change along Conant Street, and we allowed that demolition to proceed. This is a similar case. I just wonder if you think there's a way to streamline some of the processing, or should we, in each case, when a property is 50 years triggers, we should have a proper hearing. I'm just asking. I don't know the answer to this. Heather, you might want to speak up a little bit about this, because it'll affect your office a lot.
Yeah, so we're expecting to begin receiving more applications than normal because of the new date change. And one thing to note is that the Attorney General's office does have to approve the bylaw change before it takes effect.
Okay.
So I just found that out from Kari. So
Thank you.
that'll probably take place, hopefully, within the next month. That'll take effect once it's approved by the AG's office. But one thing I wanted to discuss was the possibility of some sort of administrative review and approval for some of these properties. So right now, when we get an application for demolition review, I scan it and I send out an email and I ask if anyone's available to conduct a site visit with me. Some of these properties that we're going to get demolition review applications, I can tell from looking at them before I even do a site visit that they're not going to be found historically significant. And that's when I wonder if it's even necessary to send out an email to you guys and to schedule a site visit and to make someone meet me on site for a quick 5-minute or less site visit to determine that it's not historically significant. So that's one of the things I wanted to discuss with you guys. If there's some sort of administrative sign off that you guys would be willing to entertain with the new bylaw changes. And we can have a discussion on what sort of, is there a date threshold that anything before can't be administratively signed off on, that sort of thing. I just wanted to get your feedback on something like that.
What's the legality of our assigning something that's we're charged to do to an administrator?
I think so. We don't actually have like rules and regulations, and I believe rules and regs can just be approved if you schedule a public hearing, correct, Marcia? So this could be something that we develop like an official rules and regulations on the process for demolition review, and then we could put in a section about administrative sign off.
Heather, are you familiar with any other community? I mean, on the one hand, it sounds like it would streamline things, but on the other, I am a little concerned because I think the value of other people coming in and looking at the property may know a little bit more. I don't want to make a mistake.
Okay. And one of my other ideas was, so for like, I think most of the other boards that planning division staffs, there's like an application submittal deadline for a meeting. So right now it's kind of like a free for all when we get demolition review applications. Yeah. So if we set a certain deadline each month, then I would get all the applications by that deadline, and it would give us time to set up site visits. Say, I could do all of the site visits in one day or that sort of thing. So I'm not sending you guys emails every other day about, oh, I got a demolition review application, I need someone to meet me, and then it gets all confusing. And that also will help streamline scheduling public hearings when they're needed if something is found to be historically significant, because right now it's cross your fingers and hope we can get in a public hearing before the 45-day period is over. So if we set up some sort of submittal deadline process, that'll help streamline it as well.
I think that's a very good idea.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Actually.
Make it easier for you, and I like the idea of structure. If the community understands there's a structure behind this and it's not random, I think that strengthens the seriousness of this as well. So I think it works on several levels. And
it preserves having eyes on everyone. I would really like to know. I would really like to see what's being proposed for demolition. I do too. I also think it's important for us to have a sense of what's going on in the community. Yeah, and it's hard. I think, again, it's sort of one of the reasons I'm proposing reinstituting these historic coffees, because I feel that it's hard to know what's going on in town. The newspaper doesn't cover stuff, and maybe once we are out from completely under the pandemic, but that doesn't sound like it's happening, we would know. But so I think there's a positive side to this, that we still may have to schedule some of these hearings. So I like your idea.
Okay. Okay, so I'll look at our calendar and try to figure out what'll work best, whether it's like the first Tuesday of the month or something, and I'll figure out what'll work best with our meeting schedule and how long we would need to like run legal ads and that sort of thing. And I'll put together like an official proposal for you to look at your next meeting.
Marcia,
right?
I just want to note that there's approximately 20 demolition applications are received by the building inspections office annually. So it's right around that number. We were seeing an increase over the years. I think, 20 to 25. So that's what you would be working on a fairly regular basis. So I think it makes a lot of sense with what Heather is proposing to start out with having a time frame, and you have to get it in by a certain date, but then to evaluate after a year or two to say, okay, this is what is appropriate. Maybe it would be to work toward an administrative approval type of thing.
Yep.
I know that they do that with natural resources and the wetlands bylaw. So it's something to take into consideration, depending on the volume that you're seeing.
Well, and I would assume, given that we've changed the time frame, we might get more than 20 to 25, maybe.
Well, that's, no, the demolition is, you would possibly have less.
Oh,
20 to 25 are what happen across the board. So that if a house was in disrepair but was within that 50-year time frame, it would still get a demolition permit. It wouldn't come to you.
oh, okay, I see yeah, okay. Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I just want to remind us that a significant house can be not significant architecturally, but by virtue of who lived there.
Yes, yeah,
And that means we have to be paying some attention to the chain of title in a property.
right.
And so it may be an utterly nondescript house, but maybe someone who went on to, who either did something important there or went on to fame elsewhere, we want to care about them.
I agree. So I think I like what Heather's suggesting, and that allows us to do that and allows us to kind of get a sense of what's happening and how the new changes in our bylaw have affected demolition requests in the town. The other thing, and I'm not sure you want to take it up now, but I'd like you to think about it. We successfully got this through town meeting. I kind of like the streamlined town meeting, so maybe we ought to look and see what we want to do next year. A couple new tweaks on the bylaw, and I talked to Heather about it. One of the things, well, speak up, Heather, I don't speak for you, but one of the thoughts was about the issue of that our position would run with the house. In other words, if we request a delay on the demolition, it would run with the house, not the owner. So if it's sold, it would still be delayed. Because right now it runs with
Well, no, so right now that's how it is. So right now our delay runs with the property. So that means that someone could, a current owner could go through demolition review, have the 1-year delay put on their property, put it on the market, and
then the
say,
house
oh,
dies.
this house can be torn down on January 1st because there's already a demolition delay on it. So a change that other towns have been doing in recent years is that the delay runs with the property owner. So should a house be sold during the delay period, the delay would start over with the new property
Right.
owner.
Excuse me, I got it wrong, but yes, thank you. So that's one suggestion. So I don't know if you're not prepared necessarily to talk about it, but perhaps next month's meeting, if you would review, Heather had sent out, this is some time ago, maybe we could resend it, some of the suggestions of ideas that we had to strengthen our bylaw. That being one of them. The idea of that whether or not we should have an application fee to request demolition review. The other one that's really dicey is partial demolition. I'm not sure we want to get into that, but that's a thought.
Boy, I'd be willing, given some of the partial demolitions we've seen.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know exactly how to approach it, but
Newton recently made a change to their bylaw to include partial demolition, so we could look at theirs and find out from them how it's been working.
Yeah, Newton seems to be really on the ball about this stuff, I must say.
Yeah. So at any rate, those are things to be considering. So perhaps Heather, if you, at next month's meeting, you just let us know what your thinking is about kind of combining all the requests in a time frame. And others, if you'd be thinking about what you think, a couple of changes that would strengthen our bylaw. One of the things I know also, as a tradition, we do request folks to document the property before it is torn down, but that actually isn't in the bylaw expressly.
Right.
It strikes me that that one is a must, because I think that is, that's essential to, maintaining an understanding what was built here. So I think, hi, Bob, yes?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I can imagine a language, a preamble kind of language that would in effect say the person is not only an owner of a property, but a caretaker of it for history. And that we lay out an ethic of caretaking that would inform our view of the obligations to the historical record.
Okay, so, well, actually, so we have sort of two right now, that the idea that the delay runs with the property, not the owner, and that we formally request documentation.
And we look at partial demo. Are you making a list of things we're gonna do?
Well, I
or
got those two.
think
Partial
we're gonna
demo just sort of scares me a little bit. I just think,
Well, be bold.
I'll
think
put
we should
together a
look
memo about
Yeah.
some of the potential changes in a bit more detail so we can
Okay.
discuss at our next meeting.
okay, thank you. I think, because I'm hoping that we have a streamlined town meeting once again next year, and I think it is a lot easier to get this through than the old way we had conducted town meeting. So I think we ought to strike while it's a little bit easier to do this.
Don't bet on it.
Don't bet on it, you think it's going to? Well, anyway.
Been here a long time, right?
Yeah, well, but I do think every year we ought to try and tweak this bylaw a little bit, and I think,
I agree with
we successfully did it last time, let's do it again this next year. That should be a goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so, thank you. Then moving on to item 3, the Route 2A improvements. I hope you've had an opportunity to look through the documents that were on the website for this meeting. Concord doesn't have a large amount of Route 2A in it to respond to this, but I feel very strongly that what I have read leaves out the importance of the road. There's an awful lot of information about bike safety and pedestrian safety and crosswalks and lights and widening the lane for bikes. But a portion of this Route 2A was the original Battle Road. It's why we have Minuteman National Historical Park in addition to the bridge. And I feel strongly that we need to take a position about this. On the other hand, I am not an engineer, and I look at those documents, Marcia, help. Not entirely sure what I'm seeing. So I open it up to everyone. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at them. Some of you understand this better than I do.
Heather and I were both at the Battle Road Scenic Byway Infrastructure and Land Use Ad Hoc Committee that was created to look at specific aspects of this project. There are 4 towns, I believe, including Concord, Acton, Lincoln, Lexington, I think it's 4, and the national park that are part of the scenic byway. This is a significant part of the scenic byway, which all of the towns are paying attention to, I hope, the bigger thing. And I think there's growing understanding that the process for public review and engagement for this has been lacking. that the time for review has been very short and inadequate. Several of the design proposals seem to be things that would permanently change the character of Route 2A. And I hope Concord would look at this. And I don't know what we think about the realignment of the intersection at Cambridge Turnpike, Route 2A and Lexington Road, but I don't think the town has really reviewed that. Lincoln, of course, has been working for a year with all of their boards and departments, except it turns out maybe the Historical Commission. So the Historical Commission met last night and they're going to prepare a document that I wasn't able to find out more about for this meeting, but emphasizing the historical importance of the Battle Road, AKA Route 2A.
Could any of you tell from the documents if anything significant to the historical landscape is being lost?
You mean some kind of a structure like stone walls or something like that?
Or yeah, I mean, so you're going to do a major improvement in 2A on Battle Road. So I couldn't tell from reading that whether they're just making for safer and easier transportation or they're making significant alterations in the Battle Road.
I think the significant alterations come with the addition of maybe 8, but anyway, at least a handful of raised crosswalks within that section of the Battle Road. So be vertical granite curbing, split islands for pedestrians to gather in the middle of the road in case they got stuck. Lights, I think, are part of this, but these are all questions. You know, there's numbers associated with these pedestrian crossings that mean a lot to traffic engineers who may know what they are, but we don't know visually what the impact of all these crosswalks will be. We don't have any data on why they're needed, if they will really be safer, if anything will make travel for bikes and pedestrians on Route 2A safe, if the speed limit of 40 miles per hour is not adjusted. So these are some of the questions. And Mass Highway seems at this point to be open to extending their period of public engagement, having a public design meeting so that other members of the public might see and understand better what we're talking about here, because it's not possible to see what this means from the engineering drawings, really.
You know, it seemed certainly when you look at the scope of work and what they're proposing, it is going to change the road in many ways.
Mhm.
And I do think it will kind of lose its, not its historic value, but certainly a little bit of the historic feeling of the road. However, it does seem like the town of Lincoln, looking at the documents, it seems supportive of this work. I'm just curious, has the planning department or our public works department or highway department communicated with Lincoln to get a sense of why they're so supportive and what they seem to see that we don't?
Well, if I may, Heather and I have had attended a couple of the stakeholder meetings that Lincoln is the one who made outreach to Mass DOT.
I see that.
They got a grant and they held several meetings to where we were on site. We walked through the whole site. We looked at each intersection. The majority of it is not in Concord. The only intersection that is in Concord is the one in Lexington Road. So Heather and I did not feel that, that we had much to say other than it doesn't seem to necessarily fit with what is the scenic byway in relationship to the Battle Road. But already people are driving 45, 50, 60 miles an hour through there. So they're not even paying attention to it. So if we slow people down through the use of these splitter islands and safe havens for pedestrians, if we make it accessible for pedestrians and cyclists, that will automatically slow it down. And at least that's been the theory behind Lincoln's support for this project. We have not looked at it other than from, and the plans were new to us. I did see that they were doing a major redesign of Lexington Road. Given its offset from Brook Street, it's probably, or Brook Road, it's probably, from a safety perspective, it's better. I don't like the fact that you have that, you can't make that turn, but just coming right off the road from Lincoln into Concord to go on to Lexington Road. So I have some questions about what's been designed, but there was input, there was a lot of discussion, and we kept saying it needs to go to a broader audience.
Right.
I think this is its opportunity now, and now that they have some plans on paper, that is the opportunity to have input. And so I'm delighted to hear that they're going to extend the comment period.
Well, I don't think I heard that directly from them.
Okay.
but I know the park is requesting that, and from conversations that other people on the committee have had with key folks at Mass Highway, they're open to change, and they're open to more public input, and they're legally required to do some of this stuff because the project's 75% federally funded.
Yeah.
So they there has been no real they now, well, with this letter that they've just sent, they seem to be trying to catch up to the compliance end of it. So there's some discussion about doing something more simple now, and then just doing something more simple and fitting within resurfacing.
I think the concern and the reason that there is some desire to move this along quickly is the 250th 2025, and given the time frame that it takes Mass DOT to get a design completed and bid and constructed, they were trying to get this all done before 2024. So there are a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of conversation going on, and this is just this is considered a repaving project. It doesn't even begin to get into the major things that Lincoln was looking for. It's really cosmetic to try to slow people down.
Well, it's not going to be very cosmetic, really, because the structures that are being proposed are pretty impactful, and they come with many more signs. Every intersection, every crossing comes with 4 more signs.
Yeah.
And there are bike signs and
It'll certainly change the character of the road. I can tell you.
Yes.
It will. Now, and to be honest, and I'm sorry I say this,
yeah.
I lived in Lincoln about 20 years, and I've been in Concord
Oh, right.
17. Speed is everywhere in town.
Yeah.
And that I see that as an important issue, clearly from a safety perspective, but I don't know if it's beneficial to really change the character of an area like that to try to get people to slow down, when in fact I really don't think they will.
Well,
You know what? I'll be very blasphemous. I would like to see speed bumps. I would like it to remain a country road because it overlays the original Battle Road. It's why we have the park.
Right.
I vote for speed bumps. I mean, I know it's being ridiculous.
there is the bridge.
So let's take a vote on that. Yes.
And the bridge, I understand the
I
bridge.
second.
Oh, yeah, but it seems to me that it's really crucial that if what's driving them is 250, then you don't alter the site that people want to visit
Yeah.
in order to help them visit it.
Yeah.
Right. So instead,
I was just saying that ought to be made explicit as our standard. But you don't alter the place you're going to preserve in order to preserve it for people to visit.
Right. And there's so many historic structures on that road. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a structure.
The pothole that Colonel Smith tripped in.
So, well, what I would ask of all of you, I propose that we do send a letter back to Mass DOT, right? We are with it. That's what they're asking for, a comment.
Right.
So I think what I would do is maybe draft some, no, Heather, tell me if this is okay for public. If I, talking with you, draft and others, draft something, send that to the whole commission to review. Is that fair? I don't know. Is that not Robert's rules? I don't know.
We
It's-
would need to review it in a meeting.
Okay, so I
If
would.
you
draft
want the
it
whole
next-
commission's eyes and comments on it. We could, like, one member, Marcia, can 2 members and myself draft it? Because 2 is not a quorum, or,
Who is a subcommittee and would require open meeting.
okay, so one
Who is-
member.
Really?
Okay,
2 of us?
I could work
We
with.
need to enlarge the commission.
So Heather, I could work with you and write up something that could be reviewed next month. I just, this does seem to be pushed through. It should not be that fast.
Right, the
Yes,
letter that
important.
MassDOT sent us does not have a date for when they wanted comments back by. And I did email the person, Kurt, in the letter and ask, what date are we supposed to get you comments by? And I've not heard back from him. So I don't think it's too much to say, well, you'll get our comment letter after our August meeting.
Yeah,
Because
okay,
they didn't
okay.
give us a date.
Yeah, it's, they seem pretty far along and now, and they just let us know. I think it's really inappropriate, seems to me. So, okay, if that's okay, then Heather and I can draft something and we will present it for next month and then send it in. Thank you. But I do get a sense from all of you that there is a concern about the integrity of the road as it relates to the national park.
Right, exactly.
And it's also an entry to, a very important entry to Concord
Concord,
Right.
yeah.
along Lexington Road, which is, and then into town from there, which is a very important, it's a very important entry for the town.
It is the route that Lafayette took
Ah,
to come from Lexington to Lincoln to Concord
there you go.
in 1825.
That's why we have historians. There you
Thank you, Bob. Gotta remember that.
go. Wow.
If you got any other little tidbits like that, you want to send them along?
Well, it ended in a riot,
Well, not that.
Lafayette's visit. A new riot, yeah.
Well, maybe include that. That'd be fun. Anyway,
Okay. Well, thank you. So moving on to item 4, the letter about the property at 367 Commonwealth Avenue. This is about the new affordable housing
mhm.
that's to be built. I would assume we have the same position that the Mass Historical, that there's no negative impact on this. I mean, is there something more I should know, Heather? I mean, and Marcia?
I just hope they clear the view after the house goes up, because that's what's going to be lost. You won't be able to see the pond.
I just walked by
That's all.
this morning. Can you explain to me, Marcia, exactly where? There's no house on the property right now where this is going. Is that right?
Well, there's the existing engineer's house. And what we've done is we've added a small piece where the driveway is located now. And the house is going to be on the drive where the driveway is now.
Okay,
The driveway is going away. The access to Giroux Recreation Area will be through the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail parking area. And that
Okay.
will be the access into Giroux Recreation Area. So,
okay,
and the house that's being added is a small 2-bedroom. It is very, very tiny. So it's just to the right. If you were facing the house from Commonwealth Ave, it's where Heather is. where
wow,
her
okay.
cursor. That's the site.
And it's very similar in design to the existing house. So
Yeah.
it's very nicely designed, actually.
Oh, so you see, okay, okay.
So they just have to get rid of all those invasives along that.
Yes.
Because it slopes, isn't there quite a slope right there? That's what
They
There is
will
a
be
slope.
filling.
There is a
They will
slope.
be
I drove
filling
on the
that.
road today.
Yeah.
There is a slope going in.
Yeah. So
There'll be
it's, right-
significant amount of fill going in.
Right.
okay, so yeah, that's, okay. What is the septic situation? They're not there.
The engineer's house is on town sewer, and
Oh, it is? Okay.
they will be able to tie this new structure
that's
into the
right.
town sewer.
Okay,
That's great.
okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. So, we have no comment. We approve. We in, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next one is election of officers. I think we only have a chair. Do we have a secretary? We don't have anything like that. We just have a chair. Is that correct, Heather?
I think you're supposed to, but I don't think we actually do.
A clerk here. Somebody
Yeah.
signed up on the minutes.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to have a clerk.
Have we ever?
Not in my
I'm sorry to
experience.
ask that question.
I don't
but
think so. So, well,
maybe next year.
I would open it up to nominate someone to be chair, since that seems to be the position.
I nominate Melissa.
I would have to second. I know.
So I have tried to recruit others. I think this will be my third year. If I do it this year, then I absolutely won't do it ever again. Marcia, you're muted.
You really shouldn't, but it's really best, it's been advisable to try to rotate every
Yep.
year. So I think you need
Every
to
year.
find somebody who will be a co-chair with you to learn what needs to be done and
Okay.
to be able to step in when you are not available.
So would someone like to volunteer? So Alan and Rebecca are associate members. They cannot be officers.
Correct.
Boy. I can't do it this year.
And how many members are you supposed to have, Heather? Is it 5?
We have 5.
Yeah, so
So Tom is missing. Tom is our other full
Tom
member.
would be good. I nominate Tom. Because
Yeah, that's good.
that's what happens.
I second. You have
Well,
to show up.
Okay, well then all in favor of Tom and Melissa as co-chairs. Bob,
I,
Michael,
Aye.
Nancy,
I,
aye. So I'll give Tom the good news.
what happens when you don't come to a meeting?
It's standard. Okay, that would be good. Thank you, Tom. Well, does anyone have any updates? Nancy, I guess I was going to ask you actually to talk a little bit more about the status of the Wright Tavern and preservation restriction discussion, and also to ask all of us, we do have other preservation restrictions, but that we don't have a process to monitor them. Should we not have a process?
I think that's a very good question.
Yeah, we probably should start some sort of official process to check in on those yearly.
Yeah. And we should delete the Barrett Farm PR because it's moot.
Right, it's now part of the national park, correct?
Yeah, and there's a specific clause in that PR stating that it would not apply if it went to the national parks. So
Okay,
that's one less, but I don't think there are many more preservation restrictions that apply to us, not many, but other preservation restrictions that the Historical Commission is not responsible for. But other parties are, like the Select Board, right, Marcia and Heather? Other preservation restrictions are monitored by other than the Historical Commission.
Well, the conservation restrictions are monitored by the Natural Resources Commission. They have a stewardship group that does that. And I think it's the Select Board for some of these other preservation restrictions, but I think it depends on the restriction, the language of the restriction. So
Right. It'd be interesting to know what those preservation restrictions were in case we were particularly interested in the fate of those.
right.
and could maybe offer to assist the select board who which may or may not have anybody with historical background on their boards.
Well, so as I understand it, before I go to Nancy and the Wright Tavern, the Thoreau Farm, the new Church of Concord, and the West Concord Depot are the current preservation restrictions that we have.
That-
Right?
Yes.
Does the Historical Commission hold the PR for Thoreau Farm?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't think
So
so.
who is that? Is that the
Select.
select board?
Select board.
Yeah, I can-
Okay,
Anyway, it'd be interesting to know that. And maybe to pay attention to it. This is a recurring thing. It's a recurring challenge. I think I just went with the town, which was reviewing a conservation restriction on a land trust property. And that was very impressive for its sort of routine nature, with people understanding what to look for. They had all kinds of GIS stuff out there marking things. Anyway, I think it'd be a good thing for us to pay attention to.
okay. Okay, so Nancy, so if you want to just kind of give us a little update about Wright Tavern?
Right Tavern has been interesting. We have a final grant agreement. Thank you, Heather. I hope you got all that down, and I read through it. So I think everybody's happy with that at this point. So it does say that the Historical Commission will work with Wright Tavern to develop a draft PR. And that would be handed in before the completion of plans and specs. So that gives an opportunity for folks to take a look at what's being proposed at this National Historic Landmark and to comment. It's not an approval. It's not a negotiation. It's just input of the Historical Commission into that. So I thought that was really a very positive thing. It is a historic landmark. They are probably going to be asking the town close to or more than $1 million all told when it all gets done. And somebody needs to be paying attention to the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Wow.
And that means maybe the Historical Commission needs to know more about those, sorry to say. But it's really very interesting because CPC needs to well, I don't know if they formally certify, but they're definitely responsible for making sure the projects for historic preservation meet those standards. So they have formed, the church has formed a nonprofit group to help them manage the work and to be raising more money for who knows what. Because I think what they ultimately want the Wright Tavern to be is still not totally clear.
Do they continue to meet to discuss their ultimate use? Since I still feel strongly that that question they need to answer.
I don't know. I've not ever been contacted by them to help.
Okay.
I was very encouraged by what Rosalind said, and she's the new president of the new organization. So they seem to now have engaged a lawyer to look at the PR and help them develop it. And one of their consultants is going to be drafting it. They have 2 consultants who'd be totally competent to do that. So
Isn't there, it seems to me, there's not a big question here. It was built in what, 1740s or 50s. It was a tavern, and then in the 1790s it became a bakehouse. And it was a private residence. For the historical period they're marking, it's a historical tavern.
yeah,
And you either restore it as a historical site with a particular set of relations with the meeting house and the provincial congress, or you got to jettison the whole thing and make it an old building for some new function.
I think they're definitely in between there. It's really there's been so much done to it over the years that I think restoration would be next to impossible. And the visions that they seem to have for it, it's going to be very difficult for them to meet any of their expectations. So I don't know where they're going with it ultimately. It'll be interesting to see, but they seem to be paying attention to the present.
I will bet you that they will take their interpretation of the meaning of self-government and liberty and use that to inspire 21st century activities in that name.
Yeah, and interactive exhibits. The problem is it's a very small tavern compared to Lexington's Buckman Tavern. So to get people up to the second floor would require some kind of an elevator, either on the interior or on the exterior. And if it's on the interior, it would be terribly consumptive of space and whatnot. Anyway, there's some problems.
Well, thank you. So moving on to observer assignments, if anyone has anything to report about, I think Alan does the HDC. I've observed them as well. I think the property that a lot of us were concerned about, 1 Sudbury Road, which is right across from the library, I believe the HDC has approved the plans. There was concern, or my big concern was the kind of ridiculous stone wall that they had originally proposed, but they're not going to do that now. So that's good. There will be some tree removal, but the integrity of the house, I think, will be maintained.
Which is number 1?
1 Sudbury Road, you remember where Anne Lang used to live? Did you know Anne Lang? Right across from the library. It's the Italian.
Is it the Bigelow house? The one where blacksmith Frank Bigelow, he was active in anti-slavery with his.
No, it's right next to, no, it's the corner. It's the Italianate house. It's a very large home, a very large property. There it
Oh,
is.
yeah, right, that one.
Yeah.
That one that burned down and got rebuilt.
Pardon?
That house was burned down in the 80s or was rebuilt.
And rebuilt. So it was rebuilt in the 80s or 90s.
A guy who writes about Frank Sanborn lived there when it burned.
So there's that lot that's next to it. I've only heard rumors about this, but is that lot number 15 going to be developed also for a house? Is that where a lot of the trees are coming down? Because that's all wooded now. Does anybody know about that?
Heather, do you know?
I don't know the exact plans for that lot. The only thing that was reviewed were things for
Right.
1 Sudbury.
Right,
Okay.
but we don't know anything about the development plans yet.
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I do sort of observe, but I am embarrassed to say I wasn't able to, was the big public event meeting about the redeveloping the Thoreau Business District. The minutes haven't been posted, so which I would have encouraged people to look at, because that's encompasses a lot of space in Concord, and it will be very exciting to see what ultimately comes of that. Marcia, I presume you are a part of it.
Right. Well, it was a workshop, even though it was virtual. About 60 people attended.
Great.
And as participants, and then the planning board and the consultant through our Metropolitan Area Planning Council also attended. So it was getting some feedback on some of the concepts having to do with parking, having to do with the design guidelines, the height of the building, the setbacks of buildings and so forth. And the planning board is processing, actually the consultant is processing all of that information, and then we'll be coming back to the planning board with some additional visual information for the guidelines, as well as some updated zoning for their consideration, which they may then bring to town meeting maybe in the fall or in 2022. So it was a very, there were a lot of comments, a lot of people were kind of surprised, although this has been going on for almost a year and a half. But some really robust conversation, and so it was really good to see the participation I'm looking forward to see what's next. So
In- How is something like this being paid for? That's, I mean,
it's a grant. We wrote a proposal to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and they were willing to, they accepted it as work for their staff, and so we have a grant to do it.
but ultimately, so they come up with a plan, then we need to identify developers or.
No, this is not, this is just to put the zoning in place for
Okay.
property owners to then think about what they might do differently in the future. But we look at the age of some of the buildings, such as the Crosby's Market building and the CVS buildings, and they're getting to that point where the owners may start thinking about, well, what could I do differently? So we want to have zoning in place that would allow them to redevelop in a
Okay.
way that would be acceptable to the community.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah. Any other things to report? Any
Can I
other?
ask you a question that maybe is new business, but I'm wondering about how the town is planning for the 250th and whether we as a historical commission play any role in that.
Good question.
I think maybe if Linda were available, she could talk to it a little bit further. They have been discussing a celebrations committee for the 250th and are looking for green cards for people to participate on that committee. And so that's in conversation, and it would fall to the select board to put that committee together.
Okay. Are you there, Linda? Well, maybe
She's listening.
I will ask her because I've wondered as well. I will ask her and then report back next.
Well, I was really thinking not just about the town celebrations committee, but really about, how broadly inclusive can this be made?
Hi, Linda. Thank you. Did you hear the question?
I did hear the question, and it's going to be discussed further at the select board meeting on Monday evening.
Okay.
And I think Marcia did a good job of giving you sort of the status of where we are. The select board had drafted a charge in February, and we're re-looking at that charge right now. In regards to Bob's question about the how inclusive, I think the starting point for the town anyway is an executive committee, and that there will be many, many, many subcommittees, and the objective is to include citizens and groups all over the town eventually for this celebration. And as all of you are very aware, there are both national and state efforts going on related to this. There's some legislation under consideration right now to include Concord as one of the towns that would be represented on the 250th committee for the commission for the state. And so and there's an amendment to some existing legislation to make sure that Concord's included in that. So we're hopeful that the legislature will act on that soon. So that's the update I can give you at this point. I hope that answers your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Nancy?
I have one little one. Giles Parker has stepped into the acting superintendency at Minuteman National Historical Park. And his background, interestingly enough, is as a museum curator. So that's his professional background, but he's also served a stint as superintendent at Boston Harbor Islands. So he was at the Battle Road Scenic Byway Subcommittee, Ad Hoc Committee, whatever it is, meeting today.
How do you spell their name again?
Giles, Giles, and Parker. And I think he did a good job for day 3 on the job. So he'll be there probably until fall at least.
Okay.
Well, no, his temporary appointment runs out sometime in the fall, and then there may be another acting if we don't have a permanent person there. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Linda. If there's no other business, public comment, then I would ask we would review the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections to propose? If not, would someone like to move to?
I had one. I read the minutes and I wasn't there, but I apparently proposed accepting the minutes. But since I wasn't there, I apparently didn't make that motion.
I had a similar, I was apparently there. I think I missed out a lot on the prison cemetery conversation, but I'm not listed as present, so maybe I was late or something. I hope I didn't just complete, but I'm cited as doing other things later on.
Yeah, so if we could correct that, Bob Gross was not there and Nancy Nelson was there. Otherwise, I thought the text was fine, except clearly, Bob, you didn't move to accept the minutes. So
Maybe that was me.
I would, it sounds like something Nancy would do, right?
I'm kidding.
Um,
I had one more little one about Hildreth Corner,
Okay.
where it says the neighbors would like to preserve what's left. Maybe we could say would like to preserve the lot at 625 Lowell Road, lot number 4, and what's left of the corner. It used to be a real area, I guess, in town.
I had a store,
Yeah, a store right
a
there.
tavern.
And there's a Hildreth street or road, a couple of streets down. So it was more of an area then.
They were selectmen, Jonathan Hildreth.
Yeah. So it was interesting.
when would he have been a selectman?
In the 1820s.
Early, okay.
Yeah, he, the family moved here from Littleton or Harvard. The father was a lawyer and he had a couple of one bachelor son who gave a lot of his time to town meeting and to the select board. And a daughter who ran a farm by herself as a widow for about 20 years. And
Oh, wow.
she makes an appearance in my book, and her count book is at UMass Amherst Library.
Well, thank you. Okay, with those changes, can I get someone to move and
Moved.
accept the meetings? Nancy Nelson has moved that we adopt the changes and accept the minutes, and Bob has seconded
Yes, perfect.
officially. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that's it. Our next meeting is August. I should have had this. August 2nd, second Thursday. Somebody quick for the calendar. I don't have one.
August 12th.
Thank you. August 12th. And we will have the letter we will propose. Heather will work on proposed changes to the bylaw we can discuss, and the letter that, about the Mass DOT. So thank you. So I think with that, I will move that we end the meeting. All in favor?
Second it.
Bob, Michael,
Aye.
Nancy,
I
Melissa. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you, Heather, always. Where's Charlotte? She asleep?
Oh, my Alexa thinks you were talking to her.
that's right.
She's in bed. I got her to bed before the meeting started because my husband's working late.
Very good. Very good.
Oh, she can, oh my God.
Very good.
Well, I just want you to know, my dog's asleep over here too. I ran around all day to make sure she would be tired.
Yes,
I'm
I
actually
didn't
impressed.
let her nap after school because I was like, you gotta go to bed early.
Thank you, everybody. Good night. We'll see you next
Good
time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.